My name is Richard Sapp, and I've had the pleasure of doing this for the third year here at Molina High. I've been doing this job, outreach and teaching about financial aid, whether it's direct with students and parents or whether it's helping you guys understand how to help them. So I've been doing that for about 13 years now, and so it's always a pleasure to get out and do things like this. We're going to cover some of the FAFSA, but we're really going to go sort of the basics of financial aid as it all relates to FAFSA. So what is financial aid? It is funding to pay for college and college-related expenses. And that's what it is. You'll hear, it's broken down into several categories, several different types, but that's really what it is, money to help pay for college. It can be based on need, which is basically after monies that your family contributes. If you need some more money, that's called the need. It's a formula. We'll talk about that. It's also merit-based, which is if you demonstrate a special skill or talent or technique, it can be based on that. And then another category is self-help, and that's a type of work or loans. That's called self-help. But any three of those categories, just about all financial aid, will fit into those three categories. So just in this course, we're going to talk about the FAFSA. We're going to talk about the cost of college and how the FAFSA relates to the cost of college. We'll talk specifically about three types of aid that you're awarded with the FAFSA. And then we'll talk about some resources, and I have some of them listed here, but also I'll give you another resource. One of them is the FAFSA demo site where you'll be able to go in on your own and then work in the FAFSA in a beta or a test mode. And I'll give you that information at the end of the presentation. So the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, it must be completed to be considered for aid from the federal government. And of course, schools will use that to also award state aid, and they'll also award that, use that to award institutional aid. And institutional aid is aid that's unique to an individual college campus. So you have the federal aid, which is the largest of all the monies, federal Pell Grant, Stafford loans, parent loans, state financial aid for the state of Texas, and then the schools have their own monies. Typically, when you're completing the FAFSA, you're applying for all of those that are going to be, the student will be eligible for. It may be in some instances that the student may have to complete another type of application for the individual college, and that varies from college to college. But for the most part, they're filling out the form called the FAFSA. A lot of times we start thinking about different types of state programs, different types of federal programs, but for the most part, the financial aid will look at those programs to match the student. So you don't really have to be an expert on the different types of programs and know the names of them. It's good to be aware of them, but a student or a family wouldn't have to know those. The college, the institution will try to match them up if it's available for them. So basic eligibility criteria for the FAFSA. A student has to have a high school diploma or a GED. They have to be enrolled in a degree or certificate program. What that means is that not every single school, every single college, every single institution they're going to be eligible for financial aid that's awarded through the FAFSA. While they're in school, they have to be meeting satisfactory academic progress. They have to be a U.S. citizen or a nationalized citizen or an eligible non-citizen. The FAFSA will tell, on the FAFSA, it will tell what those categories are and if these students are indeed eligible for federal financial aid. For males, they have to be registered with the Selective Service. If they're not registered, they can use the FAFSA to register with Selective Service, so they don't have to do a separate process to register. For these students that are FAFSA eligible, they don't. Student will need a Social Security number, and this is to do the online FAFSA. There are a few students, a very few small pocket of students that are eligible non-citizens, or they meet eligibility by another category that will not have a Social Security number. They won't be eligible to do the online FAFSA. But again, that's a very small pocket of students. Again, that category is listed on the FAFSA. For the most part, most students that are eligible will have a Social Security number. For those students that are not, they can still do the FAFSA, but they'll have to do the paper FAFSA. Students have to complete an IRS tax return if they were required to file. For this year, that amount is going to be $10,000. And so if they made $10,000, a student will be required to file. That figure is an IRS figure, and that's subject to change every year. They'll need their W-2s because of the information from there. And if they have untaxed income and a bank statement, they'll need that information from there. They don't necessarily need it, but they need information from that. So it certainly helps if they've got that on hand. For the parents, they have to complete their IRS tax return. Again, if required to file. For parents, the combined income is $20,000. If parents made $20,000, they're going to be required to file. If they made that amount, they will have to file. Their W-2s, a record of untaxed income, record of investments, and current bank statements, again, much like the student. Now, one of the things that I noticed I didn't put up there was Social Security number. Parents don't have to have a Social Security number for their student, for their child, to complete the FAFSA, because it's based on the student status and not the parent status. A lot of times that's confusing, but it's always going to be based on the student status. For parents that don't have a Social Security number, where they ask for a Social Security number, they'll put zeros and allow you to complete the form.